The sun beat down mercilessly on the forward operating base, turning every metal surface into a griddle. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez wiped the sweat from her brow as she performed her pre-mission checks on the map. The massive mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle was her responsibility, her domain. For the past 6 months, she had been just the driver, shuttling officers and senior NCOs between bases, running supply routes, ferrying VIPs who barely acknowledged her existence. Behind her, laughter erupted from a group of soldiers lounging in whatever shade they could find. The sound carried across the compound, careless and loud, bouncing off the sun-bleached concrete like loose gravel. Maria heard one of them clearly, his voice cutting through the afternoon heat. "Relax, she's just the driver." A few others chuckled, shaking their heads as heat shimmered off the parked vehicles. Maria's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She had heard it all before. In a combat zone where everyone wanted to be the hero, wanted to be the one kicking down doors or calling in airstrikes, being a driver seemed mundane. Unimportant. Safe. She finished her checks and climbed into the driver's seat, the familiar smell of diesel and desert dust filling her nostrils. Today's mission was routine, or as routine as anything could be in this part of Afghanistan. Transport a battalion commander and his staff to a forward position for a planning meeting. Standard convoy procedures. Standard route. Standard everything. The convoy formed up at 0900 hours. 3 MRPs in total, with Maria's vehicle in the middle carrying Lieutenant Colonel Brennan and 4 other officers. The lead vehicle commander, Sergeant First Class Davis, came over the radio with his typical pre-mission brevity. "Route clearance complete. Package is green. Let's roll." Maria put the MRAP in gear, and the convoy lurched forward through the gate. The landscape outside the wire was a monotonous blend of brown and tan, broken occasionally by clusters of mud brick compounds and scraggly vegetation that somehow survived in this hellscape. She had driven this route 17 times before. She knew every pothole, every blind corner, every spot where locals typically gathered. In the back, Lieutenant Colonel Brennan was deep in conversation with his operations officer, reviewing maps and discussing tactical positions. To them, Maria was invisible, just part of the vehicle, like the steering wheel or the armored plating. 20 minutes into the journey, Maria's eyes caught something that made her pulse quicken. About 200 meters ahead, where the road curved around a small ridge, there was a patch of disturbed earth that hadn't been there 3 days ago on her last run. The color was slightly different, the texture wrong. Her training kicked in immediately. Lead, this is 2. Possible IED at grid November Bravo 7342. Recommend halt. There was a pause. Then Davis came back, his tone skeptical. 2 route clearance swept this morning. Nothing reported. Copy lead, but I'm telling you, something's different. That earth has been moved. In the back of her MRAP, she heard Brennan sigh with impatience. "Driver, we're on a schedule. Let's keep moving." Maria's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. Every fiber of her being screamed that something was wrong, but she was just the driver. She started to ease off the brake when her peripheral vision caught movement on the ridgeline to the east. Just a glint, there and gone, but enough. "All vehicles, ambush right." Maria screamed into the radio as she simultaneously cranked the wheel hard left and floored the accelerator. The world exploded. The IED detonated exactly where her vehicle would have been if she hadn't swerved. The blast wave rocked the MRAP violently, but the armor held. Almost immediately, small arms fire erupted from multiple positions on the ridge. Green tracers stitched across the road, pinging off armored hulls. Contact right, contact right. Davis was yelling into the radio. All vehicles, return fire and push through. But Maria had already assessed the situation in the split second of chaos. The kill zone was perfectly designed. The IED would have disabled the middle vehicle, blocking the route and leaving the convoy trapped between the explosive and the ambush position. Pushing through meant driving past the crater and directly into what was likely a secondary IED position. Negative, lead. Secondary IED likely ahead. We need to break contact west through the wadi. Driver, that's not your call. Brennan shouted from the back. Maria ignored him. She had been just the driver for 6 months, but before that, she had been an intelligence analyst. She had studied enemy tactics, pored over after-action reports, analyzed dozens of ambush patterns. She knew this playbook. All vehicles, follow my lead. Break west, now. She didn't wait for confirmation. The MRAP's massive engine roared as she drove off the road, down the embankment, and into the dry riverbed. The vehicle bounced and lurched over rocks, but it was built for this. Behind her, she heard Davis make the call. All vehicles, follow too. Execute, execute, execute. The other MRPs followed her into the wadi. The terrain was rough, but it provided cover from the ridgeline. Maria pushed the vehicle hard, navigating between boulders and scrub brush, her years of tactical driving training taking over. Above them, she could hear bullets cracking overhead, but the enemy had lost their clean line of fire. Combat Air Patrol inbound, 3 minutes, the radio crackled. Maria drove for what felt like hours, but was probably 90 seconds, emerging from the wadi a kilometer south of the kill zone, back onto a secondary road. The other vehicles followed. As soon as they were clear, she accelerated hard, putting distance between them and the ambush. When they finally reached the forward base 40 minutes later, Maria's hands were shaking as she pulled the MRAP to a stop. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by the crushing weight of what had almost happened. Lieutenant Colonel Brennan was the first one out. His face was pale, and when he came around to Maria's door, his expression had completely changed. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, he said quietly. You just saved this entire battalion staff. If we had been disabled in that kill zone. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Within an hour, explosive ordnance disposal had confirmed Maria's assessment. 2 IEDs on the primary route, positioned exactly as she had predicted. The ambush team had escaped, but the air patrol had destroyed 3 fighting positions and 2 weapons caches. That evening, as the sun set over the base, word had spread. The soldiers who had been lounging by the vehicles that morning came to find her. Davis, the lead vehicle commander, extended his hand. I should have listened immediately, he said. You saw what we all missed. Maria shook his hand. I've driven that route 17 times. I knew something was wrong. You are not just a driver, Davis said. You never were. One of the younger soldiers who had been laughing that morning approached, looking sheepish. Staff Sergeant, I owe you an apology. We all do. Maria looked at the assembled group. They were looking at her differently now. Not as the driver. Not as someone to joke about. But as the person who had seen the threat, trusted her instincts, and acted decisively when it mattered most. No apology needed, she said. Just remember that every role matters out here. Today I was the driver. But I was also the person who knew that route better than anyone else. Never underestimate anyone's contribution. 2 weeks later, Maria received an Army Commendation Medal with Valor device. But more importantly, she received something else: respect. Soldiers sought out her tactical assessments. Commanders asked for her input on routes and threats. She had proven that being the driver didn't mean being unimportant. In a war zone, everyone has a role to play. Sometimes the person who seems to have the smallest job makes the biggest difference. Maria Rodriguez had been just the driver, right up until the moment her route evacuated an entire battalion. And in that moment, she had been everything.